It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is the Locked On Auburn podcast, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast, presented by Fetch Me Home Delivery. Use promo code FetchMe20 for your first delivery free. I'm Zach Blackerby, joined by Michael Pappas. Hello, Michael.
Hello, Zach.
Wrong microphone on, man. That's on me. Hey, dude.
Hello, Zach.
And Painter Sharpless, I have the right microphone turned on for you.
Yeah, if you heard a bunch of rustling around, that's my bad. And also, I do that to Justin like once a week. He's like, that's not the microphone. You think after 2 years you would learn to hit the button.
Yeah.
But here I am, not pressing the button.
It's okay. It's all right. We may all make mistakes, but that's okay. That is okay. Yeah, so we'll get into some voicemails in just a second. First, I wanted to talk to both of you guys about the news happening yesterday afternoon. 2 Auburn players, now former Auburn players, as they enter the transfer portal. We'll start with the receiver first. Former 3-star recruit Marquise McLean, the big physical wide receiver. He never really got on the field consistently. It seemed like every year going into the offseason or, coming out of the offseason, going into fall camp, he was always kind of part of the storyline, ever since he stepped foot on campus is, all right, when is this guy going to make a splash? And it just, it never really happened. All right. Y'all are both really excited to talk about this.
Well, he's definitely a guy, like you said, whose name has been whose name has been floated out a whole bunch about a guy who could potentially make a difference for this Auburn team. People thought that he might make a difference this season. They thought. I mean,
it was kind of him and Matthew Hill were in that same boat going into this year. It's like, all right, was one of these guys going to step up?
Could they be a deep threat? Could they be, something like that? And it looks like it's not going to work out for McLean here at Auburn, but we wish him the best going forward.
There's some similarity, anyway, I think, between a player like this and Tony Stevens. Maybe some Auburn fans remember Stevens' name. He was also a physical and big receiver. There were high hopes that if they could work with him on some more technical parts of the game, he could be a real contributor. I think the coaching staff went into this season with hopes that he could do that. And for a number of reasons, I don't think that he ever found his role.
Yeah, and it sounds like a lot of it happened, as far as learning the playbook and kind of understanding the game. As a recruit going into this, I mean, the coaching staff looked at him and said, okay, this guy is a physical freak, an athletic freak. Let's see if we could turn him into just, instead of just a raw athlete, see if we could turn him into a solid SEC wide receiver. That transition didn't really happen. I got a feeling that he's going to be able to go somewhere. I think some smaller schools are going to really want this guy, and we'll see. We'll see how it turns out. So best of luck to him. And then this one surprises me a little bit more, just because I think he was a better recruit. But Michael Harris, the former 4-star linebacker recruit, if I remember his recruitment correctly, he was all about Ohio State early, even when he came to Auburn for his Big Cat weekend. And then Ohio State dropped him because I believe Ohio State that year got the number 1 linebacker in the country, if I'm remembering this correctly. And so he said, okay, cool, I'll go to Auburn. And Auburn was pumped to have him. And it kind of looked like he was next in line, but he's been jumped by Owen Papo, and he's got some other guys behind him coming in. And, so on top of having to wait for Zacoby McLean and Chandler Wooten and KJ Britt to move on to the next level, whether they graduate or leave early for the draft, he's got to fight for other guys that are younger than him and probably more talented than him. So I get him leaving. I'm surprised he didn't crack the rotation a little bit more, but clearly the defensive coaching staff knows what they're doing.
I really want to talk Harris because you've made a couple of good points about both his recruitment being a guy that's sought after. I want to go back quickly, though, to McLean.
Yeah.
So I think we mentioned there might be a couple of reasons why it didn't work out. Maybe some of it is just a skill set and a talent thing. Maybe some of it was not a good fit. Also, when you look at the receiving group as a whole, remember how much optimism there was around this group at the beginning of the year? And that really continued itself for Seth Williams in the freshman year he had. But doesn't it feel like to you, a lot of the receivers outside of Seth Williams, we just didn't hear their names a lot, or at least that excitement didn't really amount to much?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of buzz about Schwartz, and, that really never...
And Hill.
Came to, and Hill, and, but at least Schwartz got on the field.
Right. And that's my point. Next point is, like, those guys were all starters. McClain felt like a piece that might be there at times, a nice addition to have, and the guys like Hill and Stove and Schwartz didn't even really crack through in the same way that a lot of fans had hoped.
Well, and if I remember correctly, they put him in earlier in his career in like Wildcat packages for blocking, but then Shedrick Jackson.
He's a great blocker.
Yeah, Shedrick Jackson kind of took his spot.
And Canella is a big physical, but also a big guy.
Michael's favorite player.
And
Yeah.
For some of the hate Canella got, I think people felt disappointed by his career, which I don't know if it's fair to him so much as just he was an okay receiving option, but a decent blocking option, and they used him in that role this year. That's important for Auburn. So I did want to go back and just mention that. I think there are a couple of reasons for McClain and wish him the best.
Sure.
Transitioning to Harris, you brought up a bunch of good points about his recruitment and being a good player. Like, do you think he gets a chance somewhere else? I do. I mean, I don't.
Oh, I think he's I think he's a Power 5 player.
Right. And some of that you're just looking at his recruiting numbers and expecting it to work out, I think. But the other part of it is if this Auburn...
Look at him.
Yeah.
Look at what he looks like.
And for the most part, if Auburn's coaching staff wants you, like especially the defensive side of the ball, I feel pretty good about their recruitment, their evaluation, and their development. It might just be that he got onto a roster and realized, dang, Owen Papo and KJ Britt, and we can go on and on and on. It's like there's just a bunch of really good players at that group.
Yeah. Yeah, and you got to think that he's been developed to some extent, just kind of being in that system, right? And being in that film room with the linebackers, being with Coach T-Will. The thing that stinks is his red shirt's already burned up, so he has to lose a year of eligibility for that. But I think this is a guy that's going to go somewhere and make an impact for a program, whichever one he chooses to go to. So
I hope so.
I was a really big fan of him when he committed to Auburn. I really thought he was going to be a difference maker for the defense. And, people look at the stars and, I don't want Auburn fans, and if you're listening to this, I don't want you to think either of these two guys were a bust. I don't want you to think, especially with Harris being a 4-star guy. I think he was a high 4-star guy. I mean, it was a big deal when he committed to Auburn. I mean, Auburn fans were stoked about it. So, and the coaching staff was as well, and the other folks in the recruiting class. So, I don't want you to think that these guys didn't work out, because I think they're still good players, and I think if they were to stay, they get a shot down the road, maybe their senior year. But they're doing what's best for them,
right?
And you can't blame them for that.
Yeah, McClain played less games this year than he did in 2017 and 2018.
And I think that's because Shedrick Jackson. I really do.
And then Harris, just I think to your point earlier, I was like, all right, there's good defense. People were very excited about his potential, and that still may be a really great player somewhere else. That's a guy that I think another team will also be excited to have.
Michael, you share a first name with Michael Harris. Do you have any thoughts on either of these two guys leaving?
It's hard to really fault them for wanting to find the best situation for themselves. So I think most people in Auburn and around Auburn will wish them the best moving forward. I'd be more surprised if we hear about Marquise McClain doing huge things at another school.
Yes.
Than Michael Harris. But, I hope they both find somewhere where they can play and enjoy themselves and get a chance to do what they love on their biggest stage.
Your team.
Okay, let's get it. Locked on LSU, your team every day.
Welcome back in to Locked on Bama.
You're going to hear about it all week long on Locked on Buckeyes.
Every day.
Monday through Friday.
When it comes to the biggest stories.
Everybody's talking, and we're not excluded from the mix.
Everything that you could want from a post-game recap, we're going to do.
They're far and away the number one team in the country. Winning at this point is the only thing that matters. It's going to put you in meaningful games later.
You need to be locked on.
Tua is the best of us. He is an incredible kid, immensely talented, and it's such a shame that his fairy tale ending was actually at the beginning.
wherever you get your podcasts.
In the Apple Podcast app.
Google Podcasts.
Spotify.
Hit us up with those 5 stars, and we're going to be here 5 days a week. 1 star for every day of the week.
Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
If you want to hear more shows like this, well, just go to LockedOnPodcasts.com.
Your team.
Greetings, 12 Locked On Seahawks podcast.
Who dat family, and welcome into this week's Locked On Saints.
Hello to all you Foxborough faithful, Locked On Patriots.
Every day.
Another Victory Monday.
It's officially Throwback Tuesday.
Crossover Wednesday episode.
Thursday Night Football.
It is Red Friday edition.
When it comes to the biggest stories.
And so the Chiefs news story of today is, unfortunately, at this point in the season, it is continuing to be injuries.
You need to be locked on.
We've touched about it on this show and all over Twitter and all that.
And all of a sudden we have a great football team with a championship defense, a franchise quarterback, a running game that can't be stopped. This is exactly why we watch football.
Good quarterbacks are maximized in good systems. And that's exactly what we're seeing with Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers this season.
Wherever you get your podcasts.
In the Apple Podcast app.
Google Podcasts.
Spotify.
Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, let's take a look at the lock. Yes?
Really fast.
Okay.
I would like to address something.
What's up?
Of course, I was pumped when Sal Cannella caught that touchdown pass.
Yeah, people are tweeting at you and stuff. You want to take a second to address this? Go ahead.
And I heard the voicemails from Tuesday, I think.
Yeah.
I love it. First of all, I gotta say, I love it. I appreciate the feedback that everyone.
Michael is the kind of guy that needs a little confrontation. Like if we were on a sporting team together, the way I would motivate you is to argue with you, even if you were my teammate, because I know that you don't take it personally. That's one of the things I like most about you. So you're a kind of guy that thrives with a little bit of friction.
Yeah, not only does he not take it personally, I think he enjoys it. He thrives off of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, keep going.
Iron sharpens iron. Okay, so.
Little Proverbs action, sweet.
So I do appreciate it, and obviously that means you guys are listening, and we appreciate that. However, I don't dislike Sal Cannella as a person. I just don't think he's a very good football player. So when he catches the touchdown pass, I'm thrilled. I'm happy for him that he actually caught a pass. A little surprised.
How much of the Sal thing is also that people were hopeful that once they got this tall guy that was listed as a tight end, that they were going to start using a tight end? And it's not so much that Sal didn't live up to whatever expectations people set in their own head, but also I just wonder if they were hoping for something different offensively and they didn't really use him that way.
He personally exceeded my expectations. I thought the signing of Sal Cannella was irrelevant. And he was a starting wide receiver for most games this year. So to me, he actually, I thought he exceeded mine. Yeah. But, it's going to be different from person to person.
Anyway, the point is, I was thrilled when he caught the touchdown pass.
Actually, okay, so you say you like Sal Cannella as a person.
Well, I don't know.
So what's your favorite? What's your favorite thing about Sal Cannella the person?
Hair.
No,
that was too cliche. I'm sorry. He has great traits.
So jump into that a little bit for us.
Mostly it was that he has, he clearly makes such a big impression on people that a girl can sit behind you at a football game.
That's still the most wild thing.
And yell about how open he is when he's not on the field.
That's crazy. She loves Sal Cannella.
And look, I don't know Sal Cannella as a person. I don't have a reason to dislike him as a person. I just don't think he's that good of a football player.
So now you're saying you don't like him as a person?
No. I don't have a reason to not like him.
Okay.
So I just don't think
So you do still have beef with him?
I just don't think he's very good at football. I was thrilled for him. He got a touchdown in his last
Taco Bell
game.
beef, baby.
The biggest game.
Taco Bell beef. So it's beef, kinda.
Yeah. I think that's a good way of putting it.
All right.
That's the name of the pod, I hope.
It's the lowest quality possible to be called beef legally.
All right. Give us a call at the Locked On Auburn podcast voicemail, 205-502-4285. Let's get it going.
Hey, guys.
All right, here's
forgot about that.
All right, here's Warden.
Hey, Zach. Warden. I realized I made a terrible mistake on my last voicemail, so hopefully you'll be nice enough to play this one instead.
Cool.
I was at the Iron Bowl this past Saturday. It's probably the most electric atmosphere I've ever been a part of in my entire life.
Sure.
You could feel the tension inside that stadium, and it was just incredible. It was one of the craziest things I've ever been a part of in my entire life. But my correction is not Ferg, but Mr. Pappas. Not only should he have to write a letter to Sal Cannella apologizing to him, he should personally find him and give him a hug and tell him sorry to his face, because that catch in the north end zone was freaking ridiculous. Like, I made some very inappropriate comments on Twitter when it happened, but good Lord, was that incredible. But other than that, I love you guys. I love this show.
We love you.
War Eagle, and I'm really hoping the show doesn't stop after basketball season, because I just found it this off season or this summer. So I don't know if you guys keep it up. War Eagle, guys. He happened to pause like right as you responded, so it's almost
that's
like
not live. That was recorded.
It sounded like he was like, oh, yeah.
He's like, no. Yeah.
Some good points there.
Well, first off, just want to address this will not stop after basketball season. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day, not just every day in season, so you don't have anything to worry about there. I should listen to these voicemails before I put them in our system, because I should have played that before we started talking about it. But do you have anything else to say? Do you think you should go find Sal Cannella and hug him in person?
Yes. I think he'll be very, very weirded out if I do that.
But we've already addressed that you fired him up, so he listens to the show, so he would probably understand why.
You spoke it into existence.
Correct. So I will do very minimal effort, but a little bit, to find Sal Cannella.
All right, let's take a...
Maybe after he graduates, I'll try to get him on the show.
This is Vinny Iyer, host of Locked On Fantasy Football, with your Locked On Fantasy Football Edge of the Day. The 2019 NFL season has been full of surprises for fantasy football, and none has been bigger of late than what Ryan Fitzpatrick is doing while locked into the Dolphins offense. He delivered another 3-touchdown game against the Eagles in Week 13, with new go-to guy Devontae Parker having his most dominant game yet. The fun can continue for Fitzpatrick as a hot streamer with matchups against the Jets, Giants, and Bengals in a row during the fantasy football playoffs. If you're playing DFS, Fitzpatrick and Parker is a hot stack you can target over the next 3 weeks before the rematch with the Patriots in Week 17. Get the edge in your fantasy football league every day by listening to Locked On Fantasy Football on your preferred podcast provider.
Let's take another look at another voicemail. Looks like this is Greg.
Hey, guys. I'm just kidding. This is Greg. I'm a big fan of the show. I just wanted to comment. There was a guy on the show today that left a voicemail about Malzahn potentially hiring a new offensive coordinator. I want to get y'all's take. If Malzahn were to do something along the lines of what Ed O did with LSU and bring in, like a passing game coordinator, because I really think that's the biggest area that's lacking is our passing concepts. If that could be, modernized and added to his assistant playbook, I like the offense that he runs, but he's just leaving a lot to be desired with the passing concepts. So with Bo Nix, going next year into his sophomore year, I really think that if we were to, make some type of addition to the staff like that, and I don't know who that would be, but that's kind of why I'm getting y'all's thoughts. But I think that could be really beneficial with the weapons that we're going to have, and all the pieces coming back next year. All right, thanks for doing a great job on the show. Love you guys. War Eagle.
Graham Harrell! Graham Harrell! Graham Harrell!
I knew you were going there. Greg, thank you so much for your call. Michael, do you have if Malzahn were to hire a passing game coordinator, who would you want it to be?
Graham Harrell.
All right, sweet.
Although Bill Cameron said last night on the drive on ESPN 106.7
did he chew up your theory?
No, he heard that there's rumors that Graham Harrell might go to Texas.
Really?
And I would be hard pressed to find a scenario where Graham Harrell is the offensive coordinator at the University of Texas and ever leaves.
But he's a Texas Tech guy.
Yeah, so if Texas Tech offered him the job, the head job at Tech, he'd probably go to Tech, but
I guess he's so young, though. I see your point, and like you'd be in such a great situation if you wanted to, like, say things do work out with Herman. I sometimes wonder if, I don't think this is the case, but we're getting to this point where coaching, patience with coaching is shrinking so much. And at certain schools, especially like Clemson, where you saw their persistence with Dabo really work out. Now, that's only one example. There's plenty more coaches who get fired after just a few years. But my point in saying all that is, say things do work out for Herman there, like he's going to get another offer somewhere else he takes, I think. I mean, I get your point in that you'd be set for success. You just chill as the OC. There's a lot less pressure of being a coordinator. But I mean, I don't think it would be a bad move for them. Lord knows they could use it after barely qualifying for a bowl.
Painter, what are your thoughts on the offensive coordinator situation? I mean, there's all this talk about Malzahn needing to bring somebody else in. Is Kenny Dillingham out of a job? It just hadn't been announced yet? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't think so. I think
he's the OC again next year.
Yeah, I think so too. And I don't think that Auburn's offense was spectacular by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, if it were just a little bit better, which would have probably put it in the category of slightly above average, they'd have a lot more wins. If they work out the offensive line though next year, the issue will not be Bo Nix. The issue will not be its skill position players on offense. I understand the frustration and one of the biggest things I'm hearing from Auburn fans, especially after seeing really the last 5 to 10 years of the game being revolutionized through the air, and a team like LSU who's been really slow to adapt finally doing it. Auburn fans want to see more of that. Unfortunately for them, while they may add some wrinkles to it, I just don't think Malzahn's offense is ever going to revolve around complex wide receiver routes. I don't think Dillingham's in any kind of trouble.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he was kind of brought in to essentially coach quarterbacks, and he's doing that, and Bo Nix has gotten better throughout the year. And some of that can just be natural development. But
it's okay to be frustrated with Nix in big games. Like, he just didn't have good games against Florida and LSU. And
would you say the Iron Bowl is not a big game? I'm joking. Obviously, I'm joking here. But so that's the exception.
I had friends who were pointing to a stat line saying, well, that's, I don't think that they won because of him. And I was like, I think that's a really bad argument, y'all. I can understand looking at the stat line going 15 of 30 for 173 is not all world, but he added a rushing touchdown. He had 5 throwaways, at least 3 team drops. So if you adjust, that's 15 of 22 right there. And on top of it,
he had some very crucial scrambles as well.
Yes, and Mac Jones played like a baller, but he also had 2 turnovers that swung that entire game.
A baller and a shot caller.
But I mean, I was really like if you're an Auburn fan watching Mac Jones, you're going, oh my God, like they may have an elite prospect in Tua, but that guy is good.
But we were talking with the guys on Locked On Bama yesterday, though, and they're saying he may not even start next year.
Yeah,
which is
weird.
Maybe. I understand they're excited about that guy coming in, and maybe you could say Tua's little brother makes some strides in the offseason. So, there is a world out there where
Bear Bryant's grandson.
Watching Mac Jones play against that Auburn defense.
Is his name Hunter?
I don't know.
Was no one else just blown away by the fact that if he doesn't have one fluky turnover, which credit to Big Cat Bryant, and then also
he has the best receiving core in college football, arguably ever.
Yeah, and that part obviously masks some of whatever. I'm not a smart enough analyst to look at Mac Jones and go, these are the things he's not doing well. But I also feel like if that's the case for Mac Jones, a freshman quarterback or Tua's little brother who's not played any meaningful game, like he's going to benefit from the same thing too. Now you're going to say, well, some of those receivers won't be there, but they'll replace those guys.
Mac Jones got absolutely murdered by Derek Brown on 2 different touchdown passes.
One early. And that one too. Well, he got hit hard on the sideline on it when he scrambled too. He picked up the first down, but he got destroyed by Brown.
Obviously, there's Mac Jones probably wasn't thrilled with Mac Jones's performance in the Iron Bowl, but I definitely gained a lot of respect for him.
Yeah, I think he looked good.
No one walked away from that game going, he's no good.
So, Talia, Tua's little brother, it's interesting. So he went to the state championship in the 7A and lost to Central last year. And then last night, it was a rematch.
Or surprising to me. Anyway.
Yeah, and what school did he go to? I'm blanking.
Thompson?
Yeah, then Thompson whooped Central last night in a rematch. So that's kind of interesting to me.
Wait, didn't those 2 teams play earlier this season? Also,
Hoover played Central, and it was a really good game. Yeah, but Thompson knocked Hoover out in the semis.
So I just thought it was interesting that they won it without him, and then with him, because I went to that game last year, and I was like, Talia looks really bad.
And I just haven't watched much of him, so I'm not prepared to say how good he'll be. It seems like the general perception, whether or not it's true or not, is that he's just not going to amount to what Tua did.
Yeah.
Which kind of unusual. I feel like usually the younger sibling tends to be the better of the two, probably with the exception of the Manning brothers.
Yeah. All right, you can email the show at lockedonauburn@gmail.com. This will be the last thing we talk about today, and this kind of addresses a lot of stuff we talked about today. This is from Michael, not Michael Harris, not Michael Pappas. But, actually it says in his email that it's Michael, but then the first line is, "Hey, Zach, this is Scott from Tampa." So never mind. It's Scott. Love the show, man. We love you too, Scott/Michael. Look forward to listening to you guys every day. Appreciate it. Is this the bag man? No, he's not from Florida. I just wanted to say I was on the fence about Gus before this win, but after Saturday, I'm convinced if we brought someone else in, it would be a step backwards. I agree. Think about this schedule we had this year, and we are sitting in a position to get to 10 wins. I mean, pretty amazing since we had a whole month where we didn't even play at Jordan Hare. And I lost track of how many ranked opponents we faced. Next year, the schedule lightens up a bit. Still the SEC West, but you know what I mean. And we will have Bo Nix, who moving into next year should be one of the most confident quarterbacks in the country in terms of experience in big games. I feel good moving forward. War Eagle fellas. Oh, let's get an offensive coordinator, though.
Interesting. I think the point about thinking Gus, is the guy for the job. We'll wait until the first loss next year and then see how things go. Now, I don't know about Scott. Maybe Scott has a renewed sense of faith in his coach. A lot of Auburn fans, I think, right now feeling more confident in their coach after a big rivalry win. But let's say they go out and lose the bowl game. There will be a lot of complaining there. Like he mentioned, that schedule next year, it's going to be easier because you get Kentucky instead of Florida and you take on UNC instead of Oregon. It's still going to be brutal. I think we've been saying that. Certainly I've been saying it. I think you share a similar opinion that Gus would be back next year. I said this team would go 9-3, didn't necessarily know where the losses would come from, but it's just like, how could you fire a coach with this schedule? And, it just...
And the future looks good, too.
Yeah. The recruiting, and you factor in the buyout being what it is. It's just like, it would be such a silly... And everyone is upset about this, but I heard Dan Patrick made this argument about Jim Harbaugh and Clay Helton recently, and it's the same one some Auburn fans, myself included, as someone who's covering the team, has made. Who are you going to get that is better than Gus Malzahn?
Yes.
You may think that you're going to get someone better, but unless it's Urban Meyer, I'm not sure it's a slam dunk. And Urban Meyer's not coming to Auburn, folks.
That's true. Michael, you have any thoughts on Scott/Michael's email?
I got a thought on what Dan Patrick said. You could definitely find someone better than Clay Helton. That guy's a bum. Anyway.
Who is it? And because Urban Meyer is the guy everyone's connecting, and I think that may be the result this time next year. I think that's more likely than anything. But who is better than Clay Helton that you know right now will leave a school or is in retirement, will come out of retirement? Like, you can think he's no good, but I've not seen anyone have a lot of success since Pete Carroll at Southern Cal in the last decade.
I mean, USC, and if I'm USC, I make a run at Mario Cristobal, number one.
He seems to be pretty set up at Oregon with a down USC, and like he's recruiting the best out of anyone in that conference. I see what you're saying. It's a fine point to make, but is he going to leave Oregon for USC at this point? He's starting to build something.
I have no idea if he would actually leave, but USC is the kind of school that, like, if anyone was going to pull him away, USC could do it.
Sure, I think that's a fair point.
And they definitely believe that they could.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Sweet.
You could move on from there. But about the email, I don't understand the fascination suddenly about hiring an offensive coordinator because, A, we have one, like we were just saying. Kenny Dillingham is currently the offensive coordinator. And we just went through this with Chip Lindsey, where Chip Lindsey was the one calling plays, but everyone was like, well, Gus is still calling plays. And we went through 2 years of just that nightmare of not knowing who was... It worked pretty well
in 17, but in 18 it certainly didn't.
Not knowing who was calling plays, not knowing whose whose offense we were running, not knowing who, the whole thing.
To me, this is less about the offensive coordinator than it is Auburn fans wanting to see their team open the ball up more as other teams have done. Certainly Alabama moved that way in the last 5 years. LSU's now done it. A few other teams, I guess you could say Florida to some extent, now that Mullen is there. And, I understand wanting that. It's not only trendy, it is working really well for a lot of schools. Of the 4 teams that are likely to be in the playoffs, 3 of them will probably be in the top 5 in major offensive categories. So the idea of wanting an exciting offense that passes the ball well makes a lot of sense, but I don't think that Auburn fans are going to get that wish under Gus Malzahn. And he's proven that with his players and the right personnel, not opening the ball up through the air a lot has worked really well for them. I don't think this is as much about the coordinator position as it is a difference in how they run their offense. And I don't think that Auburn fans are going to get that.
Michael, where can people find you and hear you?
Follow me on Twitter at CouchPapTato, and I'm kind of the backup host on ESPN 106.7.
That's not true.
Yeah, whenever someone's out sick, I get to fill in.
Okay.
I don't think he's wrong.
Yeah,
that's fair. Just I don't want
that wasn't
you to,
like a knock on me.
Yeah, I felt like you were saying you were being relegated to the bench.
No.
The sixth man, I think, is how I'd like to look at that.
You're the Anthony McLemore of ESPN 106.7.
James Harden, if you will.
Still start on the bench.
Sure. Painter?
I'm Painter. At Paint Sharpless, 11 to 1. The lunch break, Michael's on it. Zach jumps on. Justin Ferguson is there as well, among others.
Yeah, he's the point guard.
Catch that. I like that. From 11 to 1, ESPN 106.7, ESPNAU.com, and the ESPN 106.7 app.
I'm Zach Blackerby on Twitter at ZBlackerby. The show is on Twitter at Locked On Auburn. Email the show, lockedonauburn@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. This has been another edition of the Locked On Auburn podcast.
It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.